I know what you're thinking. Rob, how could you possibly know the reason for why I'm not getting any results? Are you psychic as well as having a massive brain, being really good looking, and being a multi billionaire? And the answer is yes, that is the reason. I am psychic. Just joking. I have to say just joking these days because I end up getting angry messages from people saying, "You're not all that, Rob." Check this message out. Anyway, the reason I know why you aren't getting any results is because I've spoken to thousands of different business owners. All throughout the time I've generated leads or, networked with them as well. I've spoken to thousands, and some absolutely kill it. Others don't seem to get any results whatsoever, even though they appear to be doing all the right things. And in this video today, this might be the most important video you watch. In this video today, I'm gonna break down exactly what you're doing wrong if you're not getting any results whatsoever, or you're getting results, but it's not quite what you actually want. I'm gonna break it all down for you in this video, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. Now, when you have a brain which is the size of mine, and you can pretty much comprehend the entire universe at exactly the same time, you start to see that there's patterns in everything. Patterns in people behavior, patterns in how people talk and think, how they act, patterns in what they do. And when you start to appreciate just how many patterns people are in, you start to be able to predict just how people are going to perform over a certain amount of time, right? So these patterns are often formed by how we were brought up, our genetics, the environment we are in, the type of things we consume, and they weigh on us. They weigh on our subconscious all the time. And what happens is it ends up meaning that our actions are actually affected by all these other things. Our habits are broken down into ways which are just not productive for us, are not key for us. We end up doing bad behavior. We end up saying we're going to be consistent on the thing and not being consistent on the thing, and then afterwards beating ourselves up about it, and then trying to be consistent on the thing again in an angry attempt, and then we beat ourselves up about it because we fail again, right? And it's just like this pattern which goes on and on and on. And so here's you, little old happy you, who wants to go, I don't know why I've written you in italics, but you want to go in this direction here. You are desperate to go in this direction here. But what's happening is you can feel this weird force on you. Every time you try and be consistent, every time you try and put your brain to something, you just get forced back. And you know you are more than capable of moving forward. You have dreams about this. But it's just these things which force you back like this. And there's two real reasons for lack of progress. One is this, what I'm describing to you right now, and two, I'm going to reveal in just a few minutes. But basically, you're getting forced back time and time again like this, and it feels like you're actually walking through quicksand. Nothing is working right for you. Some days you're consistent, some days you're not. Some days you get up and you're like, this is my to-do list today, and you attack it violently. And then what happens is you just can't perform at that same consistency the next day. And there's a few reasons for this, so let's go over these reasons right now actually. Here's the obvious painful one which no one wants to talk about. You lack commitment. Okay. When I was starting to learn MMA and I was learning all these wrestling things, I'd done striking years before, I'd done boxing. I could not get my head around Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and things like this. I just couldn't do it, and I don't know why. And my sparring partner, who was really, really good at what he did, said at the time, you cannot commit, Rob. I don't know why, but you cannot commit. And then I started to look on other areas of my life, and I realized this lack of commitment was in different places. It was absolutely everywhere. There's me in the middle. There you go, I got broken legs for some reason. Must have been getting my ass kicked in MMA. So there I am in the middle. I've got broken legs, and here is my life around me. This is my life bubble. And everywhere I've got these little lack of commitments. And I was an incredibly good worker, but what happened was I just could not commit to any decisions that I was making. So what would happen is I would decide to do something, and then I would betray my own self by not doing and following through with what I was going to do. I couldn't be consistent with things. I was fearful. I had dread, and there was all these things that would get impacted. And anyway, it took me years to figure this out. And what happened was it actually ended up following me into business for a little while as well. I would say I was going to do something, and I would just not commit. So do you fall into that category? Do you have zero commitment there? Because that's a frigging issue. Number two, you procrastinate. Contrary to a lot of popular belief, there is some science to support that procrastination is genetic. So look at your parents. Do they put things off all the time? And if they do put things off all the time, tell them off. Say, why have you raised me? No, just joking. Don't do that. But what you should do is learn to get away distractions. If you can sit in a room doing an incredibly boring task, this is a chair right here. You're sitting on this chair in a room doing an incredibly boring task for an hour, a task which you don't want to do, you can overcome procrastination. So what I would do is I would actually pause this video right now or straight after the video, whatever. And I would say to yourself, what do I not want to do? And in 2023, I assume you've got the attention span of a flea. You probably don't want to read a book. Right? Because books are boring when you can watch all them girls twerking on TikTok. Instead, what I would do is I would say to myself, you know what, I don't want to read this, but I have to learn to train myself out of procrastination. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to force myself to sit on a chair like this, a high chair, because you're only 2 foot tall and I'm 10 foot tall, a high chair, and I'm going to force myself for an hour, undistracted, to read a book. Procrastination is just bad wiring. It's training which you haven't untrained and trained yourself with something better. So the only way to train and to get better at something is to actually train in the opposite direction that you want to go. So train yourself to do an incredibly boring task which you don't want to do and stick to it. Commitment's number one. Number two, be procrastination, right? When you get these together, you can be consistent. We have only so much willpower in the day. So picture this. Look at this. This is a chart right here. This is the start of the day. I'm going to put S for start of the day, this line right here. And this right here is the end of the day. Our willpower throughout the day goes like this, right? And all the bad habits and things come just at the end of the part of the day here, because your willpower is like fuel. It runs out until you go to sleep, have a good night's sleep, and, you know, wake up, have a healthy breakfast, etc. Right? So what's happening is you're trying to do all these tough tasks. Let's change the color of this so people don't get confused. Right? So you're trying to do all these tough tasks at this part of the day, right? And it's killing you because, and what's happening is you're getting annoyed because you can't do it, because you tried to fit in here where you've got zero willpower left because you've burned it all. But this right here, all this perfectly good willpower, you've probably spent scrolling on Instagram. You've probably spent, I don't know, checking your emails, all this stuff right here. If you can allocate first part of your day to something worthwhile, something which you want to accomplish, it's much, much easier, right? Have you ever thought to yourself, I don't know the answer to this problem? And what happens is you end up going to bed, right? And you wake up the next day and then suddenly you've got the answer to the problem and you're like, aha, like what is this? I've suddenly got an answer to a problem here, right? That's because your willpower is recharged. So commitment, get committed. Procrastination, be procrastination, and start doing things here, right? You will literally 10 times the result. I promise you, you will 10 times the result of what you're currently getting. Okay, so there's much more on this subject I could go into, but that's a little starter because you're probably already not watching this video right now because you've probably already clicked off to go and, I don't know, look at Andrew Tate or something like that. Okay, so let's move up. All right, number two, here's another reason. If this down here isn't the problem, all right, it's number two instead. And number two is that the products you're buying, the learning materials you're learning from, the courses you're trying, they are garbage, okay? The amount of people who basically don't know what they're talking about, and it's a real problem, who sell courses, and then what happens is their students want to get their own clients and sell their own course. And then what happens is their students want to get their own clients and sell their own courses. And you see how it multiplies, right? And everyone is teaching the same thing as each other, down and down and down, and they're just getting more and more clients. All while this person here is a big fibber, a big faker, doesn't know anything about business and has just happened to market their courses. You wouldn't believe how many people are actually here who actually haven't built any business. And you end up in enough circles, you will start to understand this as well. And it's really dangerous. So the information you're consuming isn't actually very good information at all. And you've ended up going through all these iterations of it that are not helpful. So what do you do around this? Well, it's tough, man. I've been the victim of this as well, right? And you don't realize what you're doing wrong without any context on anything, right? You just don't realize. So instead, what you have to do is you have to think, you know what? I need a bit of a worldview. I need to understand a little bit of life, otherwise I'm not going to be able to identify these baddies here, these things I should be staying away from. And you do this by actually reading great books, by learning from legitimate people. And how do you find out people are legitimate? You'll start to hear over time that people are legitimate. You'll start to understand that whether some people are all just bells and whistles and other people actually have good information. So if something's helping you, genuinely helping you, and you've got data which can back it up, that it's actually helping you. So for instance, I used to make my clients, when I used to run a LinkedIn agency, I used to make them count the amount of calls they got per week, right? Because then we have actual data. I used to do it for different purposes. I used to do that so they would actually, so we could see if their messages were working. But what was happening is we would actually see data that it's either not working or it's working, and it would always work. We'd always find the right iteration. So you've got to keep the things in which have the data to support it. So look at the courses that you've taken and think to yourself, has this actually helped me? Or has it just been a load of tosh that someone's put out on the internet and then a million people have copied, and then you've bought from person 37 here, who has also iterated off this type of course here, right? With no understanding of any of the basics. So this is how you get a better worldview, right? This is how you actually get better results. So there's two ways here. Remember, we've got this right here. You got to question yourself, man. Everything is your fault. You have to have everything as your fault. Because most people here's a spectrum, right? You got your fault at the end, fault, and then you got not your fault. Most people fall at this end of the spectrum. Nothing is their fault. Everything is everybody else's fault. And what happens is it protects their little ego from it. But instead, they don't improve because they never admit they've got an actual problem or something's wrong. If you go too extreme this way, it's always better to go too extreme if this is what your personality is like over here, right? If you go too extreme this way, you'll blame yourself for things which aren't actually your fault, right? And you'll try and control everything, and it makes you a little bit neurotic. But it's better to be in this direction than it is to be over here, because this person over here is completely helpless, which is where like 90% of the population are completely helpless, don't accept any responsibility, don't make any improvements because they don't understand that it's actually their fault. And these people over here, they break down all sorts of barriers, all sorts of walls to get the result they want, and try to fit everything from a circle into a square hole, right? They try and do that, but along the way, when they come across enough of these shapes, they eventually fit the right ones in, right? Because they're trying. You have to be a trier. Everything is your fault. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. Everything is your responsibility. You need to make it your responsibility. If something's not going right, you got to look at yourself at first, right? Something's really not going right, and you're like, you know what? I'm committed. I'm not procrastinating. I'm actually cracking on with what I'm supposed to do here, with the direction I'm supposed to be going. Then maybe the material that you're consuming, which is giving you the direction, is garbage, right? Just putting that out there. It's very, very likely. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of this, right? Send me angry messages as well about how small my brain is. And I will make you my #1 fan. Okay. Take care. See you in the next one.